Well, hello. It is a particularly kind of wet but also warm day here in Chicago, and I'm kind of sick, so I'm not drinking anything right now. But I wanted to put out my Q&A video for the patrons and also the latecomers. It's a busy day out here. All right, so this is the video where I answer questions posed by you folks who are kicking me money to support the channel. Thank you again, by the way. I really couldn't do this without you guys. So thank you very much. But let's get started. I sort of resorted the questions in an order that kind of seemed to make sense in my brain. We're just going to get started with something maybe a little bit on the optimistic side, a little bit on the hopeful side for a change. So, Clematis, who asked a ton of questions, a bunch of people asked a ton of questions. Clematis asked, in most hobbies, there is usually a prevailing sense of a past golden age when stuff was better, cheaper, and more readily available, especially among the somewhat older hobbyists. Back in my day, that I know that energy well. As true as that might be, what, if anything, has actually become better regarding spirits that is better now? So my answer may surprise you. So I came into this basically like in the late aughts. 06, 07, 08 is when I started getting serious. So to the extent that the golden age was, I guess, the 90s into the aughts, I came in right at the tail end. And I would say, from my experience, everything, honestly, everything, maybe not almost everything is better now than it was back then. The only category where I might make some kind of exception would be Scotch. Because, that was an era when you could still get, Burrow 30s on the shelves, in the back room, but still on the shelf. You could still get the occasional cast strength independent bottling of Linkwood or something for, 40, 50 bucks. So that was kind of nice. But even in Scotch, I don't know, there was, you had those gems out there, those really true gems, and I've had some of those gems, and they are missed. But man, there were a bunch of dogs and a lot more dogs on the shelf than there are now. There was stuff that just shouldn't have been bottled. There was we still complain about presentation today, but back then, some of the official bottlings, they just tasted like cardboard. You had just sulfured independent bottlings, which were all circa undrinkable. So yeah, the ceiling in Scotch might be a hair bit lower now than it was. Maybe things are a hair bit more expensive, but the floor is a lot higher. So there's just so many new producers out there doing killer stuff, and even the old standbys, a lot of them have bumped up the quality of their presentation. So yeah, I call it in Scotch a draw. Everything else across the board, things are better. Back in my day, to use the quote, if you wanted a well presented pot still Jamaican rum, it didn't exist. It just wasn't out there. Smith and Cross was a huge thing when it finally came out, but that took a while. Same thing with Armagnac and Cognac. If you didn't like Henny and Delord, you were sort of out of luck. Mezcal was starting to get interesting, but it really wasn't starting to get picked up by the stores. Tequila, there were some gems, but everyone was still bottling at 40%. Baijiu, good luck. Pomace brandy, fruit brandies, good luck. Finding anything. Everything from my perspective is just better now. Even American brand. Oh my God, American spirits in general is absolutely in a golden age. It just is. You might have been able to get I might have been able to get Thomas H. Handy off a shelf back then, and I miss that, because I like THH, but not so much. But there's so much good stuff now. There's so much good stuff coming out of craft distilleries, heritage distilleries, starting to really push things a little bit. It's a good time. That being said, I don't know how much the new state of affairs, tariffs and everything else is going to affect how well I think things are going, but I guess we shall see. But for now, I mean, given how things have been in the last year, I'd say almost everything has been better than back in the day. I hope that answers your question. All right, moving on. Nicholas McCarthy asks, apologies if you have answered this question somewhere on the Patreon before. Hangovers. How do you deal with / prevent them? Is this something you actively prepare for? If so, what's your method? While sipping spirits in a Glencairn is way less dangerous than cocktailing, we love our high ABV. Hangovers. Oh, the old enemy. I mean, I would say two things. The first I would say is look to Gen Z because they have got this a lot more figured out than my generation did. The basic recipe for a Borg, not something I would be reaching for very often, is vodka. So, basically your base spirit mixed with water and either Mia or like Gatorade powder, something with electrolytes. You mix all that up, and that's yours. So just copy what they're doing. Like, when you're drinking, drink lots of water, and also maybe at the end of the session when it's not going to trash your palate, get some electrolytes in there. Drink some Gatorade. Drink some, whatever you got on hand, and that should help. There's a certain issue, like a certain quantity of alcohol is going to wreck you the next morning, regardless of your your learning from the Zoomers on this. But in that case, what I would tell you is just like pay attention to learn from experience. So basically, try to keep track of how much you're having in a long night. I don't know. Have a scratch pad and just put a scratch on there every time you have a dram. And if you have a really bad hangover, go back to your scratch pad and check the number. If it's, I don't know, six drams, you say, okay, well, next time I have something, I'm going to stop at 4. And then, if 4 goes fine, don't have any issues. After a couple, give 4 a couple of trials. Try 5. See what happens. If 5 is still acceptable, that's great. Maybe you can try 6 again just to see. But you can empirically test how you behave with a certain amount of alcohol, and that is what I would do. If you find yourself getting a bad hangover, just it's useful to know how much you had, so you can back it off a little bit from that. But also just hydrate and get some Gatorade powder. It's cheap. Just have it around and chug it at the end of the night. All right. My throat's getting sore. No, I don't want to be sick. I have scotch to drink. All right. Next question, Ian. Oh, this one broke my heart. Scott, thanks for doing another Q&A. Can you recommend some online retailers? Perhaps the ones you use most often and or for specific spirit categories. I'm also seeing sharply higher shipping costs from across the pond to the U.S. I hate you for asking this question because, at least at the moment I'm recording this, like a lot of international shipping to the U.S. is just off. They have turned off the switch because we can't get our shit together, basically. So yeah, I will name my favorite retailers. I'll start with them anyways, but I don't know where they are, and I don't know where they're going to be when when you are watching this video. So you're just going to have to go case by case. So on the international level, Fine Drems is a great little site, especially particularly for malts and some brandies. They're very good. There's some good rums there too, but I think now they've been surpassed by some other. Footnote: of course, what you are doing is you are purchasing these spirits in the country, and then you are having an authorized agent ship them to you. But the purchase happens in the country, right? So it's perfectly legal, and then you're just shipping them to yourself. Fine Drems is well worth a look. Let's see, Passion for Whiskey, brutal shipping. Footnote on all, play around with the shipping. In general, just you're going to have to buy a couple of bottles to make the value proposition worth it, but often it is worth it. So, Passion for Whiskey, obviously they do a lot of whiskey, international whiskey, very well. There's some killer Armagnacs there. You can get some Barillon for so long as Barillon is still selling stuff. Let's see what else. Oh, Rombo.dk, a Danish site, which is an absolute pain in the butt because everything is in their currency, and you're going to have to crank the math yourself to figure out how much stuff costs after VAT, which will be removed at checkout. But Rombo's a great site for rum. Maybe not like agricole rum. They have some issues with some of the French territories, but rum in general, and a few other things. But the big thing there is they have flat shipping. So I don't know if they're still shipping to the U.S. or if they ever will be again, but that is a great one to just kind of fill up a cart and ship a whole bunch of stuff to yourself from overseas. In our shop in Germany is a new one for me. Great whiskey selection, great rum selection. And it's kind of a specialty rum and whiskey retailer. That's kind of their thing. As far as brandies, you've got Cognac Expert and Armagnac.de in Germany. Again, those are shipping for them is brutal, but well worth a look. I haven't used them very much. I know Master of Malt is back. I haven't used them since they came back. Or maybe they're out again now because tariffs, but they're out there. Whiskey Agents, also brutal shipping, but worth a look. They have some stuff that other people don't have. At a domestic level, stuff where I know the light is on, I have a couple of favorites. For Baijiu, Uncle Fossil. Uncle Fossil has a terrific Baijiu selection, the best I've seen domestically. And that is going to be the main reason to go buy from them. But they have some other cool stuff, too. Remedy Spiritual Liquors, I forget what it is, have some very, very good pricing on traditional European, American shelf fare. But also they have a sort of nerdy Central and Eastern European specific section where you can get tons of awesome fruit brandies and things. And I think that is the reason to go there. Baytown in New York State. Shipping, I think with a lot of these domestic retailers, shipping is kind of a pain in the butt. But so, check to make sure that they can actually ship to you. And Baytown is one of the pain in the butts. But, you can find workarounds. But Baytown, terrific rum selection in particular, but also some other things. Shared Pour in D.C. is worth a look. Astor in New York. Watch for their sales. Their pricing is not great outside of the sales, but they do have sales all the time. Del Mesa is okay. I bought some stuff from them. K&L is interesting because they have this. They themselves don't ship, but they have a side business where you can buy bottles and have them stored and then ship. I haven't done that yet, but it exists. And that's a long list, but that's kind of what comes to mind. So you've broken my heart with that question, but hopefully that's helpful. Okay. Clematis has another question. Considering your enthusiasm for clear/unaged spirits, what do you think of White Dog? So unaged whiskey, basically. Have you had a lot? If it were more commercially available, do you think you'd be a regular buyer? And how do you think it compares to white rum, tequila, etc.? I don't really... Okay, so there's a lot of white dog I have tried from the big American heritage distilleries that I don't think is very good. I don't think it's worth buying. It's just not very... It's not good stuff. It has lots of flavor components I think are not pleasant and kind of throw the thing off balance. But that being said, like I'm all on board with unaged grain spirits. I just had a Bladnock, an unaged Bladnock new make that I thought was okay. It's not something I'm going to reach for all the time, but I thought it was okay. Caval, way back in the day, used to do some unaged grain spirits. I think they stopped doing that to my dismay. But it was okay because they were aiming. They weren't just like making stuff to age, but kind of pulling stuff off to bottle for the nerds like me. They were specifically making it to bottle, and I think that's going to be kind of the dividing line. Like, I'm looking for producers that... What I'm interested in is producers that are making unaged grain spirits too specific for that purpose. So I really want to try some proper poachine one of these days. It exists and I can't get it here, but it's on my menu. I'm not that excited about producers just putting out distillate primarily meant for aging, but then not aging it. That's not what I'm excited about. But yeah, in principle, I'd be drinking more of it if there were more out there, and if I had, if I had access to the good stuff. I'll leave it at that. Ian asks, in addition to drinking various spirits neat with a little bit of water, I am also a huge fan of cocktails. Regarding rum specifically, there are, of course, loads of fantastic choices when it comes to unaged rum for cocktails. Yes, we've talked about many of those on the channel. But I'm yet to find a go-to reasonably priced 100 proof or so age-stated rum. Scott, I know you aren't into cocktails much, but got any ideas? Ideally, I want something like Dorley's 8 at a higher strength. So this is tricky. The age statement thing is what throws me a little bit because, there's not a lot of those, and at that point you're kind of pushing into, the $50, $60 territory, which feels like too much to pay for a cocktailer. But if you can get some of the single barrel Chairman's Reserves from St. Lucia, those are worth a look, as I've talked about previously. However, if you're just looking for a jobbing, aged rum that shows age, you have some options. Not so much at 100 proof. There's not so much out there. But if you're willing to go above and beyond that, there are options. So, Mount Gay Eclipse, I think is pretty good. What is it? The Navy edition, whatever Navy thing that came out with, the 57% one. That is pretty darn good. But you can do better. You should also, I think, look at the Ed Hamilton range. In particular, I just reviewed this False Idol. See if you can get a hold of this. I know there's no age statement, but this is cheap. It is 150, it is 151 proof, and it is fabulous. And this, to my palate, basically renders irrelevant most of the kind of entry level, or maybe sub $40 blending rums out there. This is better. So yeah, go seek this out if you can. And if you really, really want to insist on an age statement, you might have to step up to some of the St. Lucia's. All right, moving on. Oh, yeah, okay, this one. Clematis asks, when talking about rum from Jamaica and esters, there is a legal limit. Yes, it is 1,600. Right now it is 1,600. grams per hectoliter of pure alcohol, of esters. What more specifically is it that's dangerous about too much esters? It's not a danger thing. I mean, I suppose there's a theoretical toxicity limit point for esters. I don't know what that is. It's going to be significantly higher than 1600, though. It is not a safety thing. It is a protecting the industry thing. All right, let's go back to the early 20th century, back when Jamaica really wasn't exporting a lot of rum to England, because the English didn't like Jamaican rum that much, those maniacs. But the Germans and others on the continent loved Jamaican rum, and they were importing it. But of course, it was fairly expensive to get rum to Jamaica to sell in, in Germany and on the continent more broadly. So what they were doing, the German bottlers, where they were getting in a bunch of very, very flavorful Jamaican rum, and they were blending it with their own domestic stock. I don't know what this domestic stock was. I'm guessing column stills were involved, and I'm guessing sugar beets were involved, probably. But they were just making blends using very, very flavorful Jamaican rum to, as the backbone of these blends. Now, Jamaica, because they were freaking wizards, were figuring out how to make more and more and more funky, more and more higher powered rums over there, the Cousins process and all of that stuff. So, and the Germans buying this stuff, these concoctions, the Jamaicans were making, noticed that they could use less of that Jamaican rum to produce similarly flavorful blends for their market. So what you ended up with was a death spiral. You ended up with Jamaica making more and more and more and more powerful rums and selling less and less of it to the Germans, who were, because they needed less and less of it to power their blends. So the Jamaicans were essentially innovating themselves out of a job. And they figured out what was happening, and they passed in. I wrote this down. Hold on. December 20th, 1934, the Rum Ester Control Act, which basically set up a party that would decide the legal limits of how funky rums could be. And they set the limit the next year, and I'm not sure if that's when they set it at 1600, but at some point the limit was set at 1600. And again, it's not a safety thing. This is just like they wanted the Germans buying enough of their rum for the industry to survive. That's what's going on. So, that's what's going on there. But good question, fun question. All right. My battery's running out of power. This is taking longer than I thought. No. Okay. Joe asked a wine question. Fun. All right. So there was Joe's question and then a bunch of follow-ups. But I'm going to group them all together, and I'll read you. Okay, Joe asks, with $150 or less, what five bottles of wine, ideally currently at Binny's here in Illinois, would you buy that are drinkable now to at least 2 years without repeating styles? I don't know if styles is the right word, but can't buy 2 Cab Francs, for example. If you had continuing, if you had $250 to spend, would you get a significant uptick in quality against that for wines that are drinkable now to 2 years? In other words, what are the general price points where a relative wine newbie can expect noticeable improvements in quality that might justify the extra expenditure? And then there were a bunch of pile-ons to this. Clematis asks, great, and to follow up, like 5 best wines for Scotch drinkers. Ryan asks, in a separate question, hey Scott, a few years back you made a video titled Spirit Nerd's Introduction to Wine. I was hoping you could expand on that, make a video in the format of building a wine palette in so-and-so bottles. So kind of the same question. To answer those questions first, yeah, I'll make that video. That sounds fun. I will try to crank that out maybe October sometime. It's tricky though, because for me, like my ideology for wine is the reason to buy wine is for food. Wine is expensive. It's a pain in the butt. It's the main reason to buy it. Not the only reason, but I think the great selling point of wine is it makes food taste better. Which is, it's not the only thing that can do that. We've talked about Baijiu before, but wine absolutely can do that. I do feel a little bit that the golden road into wine is through whatever you're eating. If you start with what you're eating, you find wines that go with it, and then after a few months of that, you know wine. Nevertheless, I will try to do justice to a here's some bottles to buy. The other thing is just availability, because some wine is just not available everywhere, and it gets tricky. But to go back to Joe's question, $150 buy five wines. That's $30 a bottle. That's a lot. I will say, maybe I'll answer the second question initially. I feel like you don't get a huge quality boost going from $30 a bottle to $50 a bottle. Maybe a little, but there's diminishing returns. And a lot of it depends on style and geography, like place of production. Certain styles, California Cab, are just always going to be more expensive, just because they can get more money for it, and it costs a heck of a... Like, the real estate is expensive, so it costs a heck of a lot of money to make stuff over there. If you're just getting into wine, I don't necessarily think there's a reason to spend more than $20-25 once you can per bottle. Once you can once you know what you like and you know there's something very, very special, I think there's a place for splurging. I've splurged before. You should splurge before, of course. But like at that point, you're getting very, very granular and specific. But yeah, there is something to be gained from spending 50 versus 30, but I don't necessarily. You got to get into the specifics of what you like at that point. I'm going to put it there. But I'm going to build my list of wines for Joe. Now, ideally, I would know what he'd be eating with these things, because again, that's my ideology. But if I were just to pull 5 bottles out of my butt to have on board for any time, for an occasions that might come up. I would start with some reds, throw in some whites, and maybe a dessert wine and a bubbly. Starting with a big red for heavy food, get a Rioja. If the problem with a lot of like really serious red wines, they do need that age, and retailers put the latest release on the shelves. Rioja is the big territory in the world. It's not the only one, but the biggest territory in the world where there is a tradition of holding wine back before they go to retail. So it is your best chance to get a bottle of wine that is ready, a big bottle of red wine that is ready to be consumed. Bordeaux will also sometimes go in that direction, but Rioja is really the one. You can still find some. So what would I get? I would get a old Rioja from a good vintage. Get a 2010 if you still can. They're fantastic. But 15s are okay. I would go for 16. Look for the 2016s right now. Don't sleep on the 2021s when they start. But for the requirements of something to drink right now, I wouldn't. I would go for the 16s. 15s as well. And the wine I would go for at this price point, get Lopez de Heredia Cubilo. This is their Crianza, which is the wine, which is kind of the entry-level baby on the sort of Rioja classification. Most of the Riojas you see on the shelf are going to be 2 or 3 years old or forward from vintage. This is the current vintage since 2016. That's just how Lopez Heredia rolls. It is the coolest winery I've ever been to. It's the only winery I've ever been to where they still use mold as their HVAC system in their aging facilities. It's so awesome there. This thing is a majority Tempranillo, but the acid and the tannins are so ripping high. You could mistake this from something as something from Tuscany or southern Italy. It has that kind of character, and because it has that kind of character, you can have this for. You can absolutely have this for lamb stew, for steaks, you name it. Anything you could use a cab with. But you could also have this for salmon, for certain heavier fish. Vegetarian meals are an option, just because this is so fresh. You can age this if you want, and it will mellow out. It will slowly become more tobacco-y and Tempranillo-y. I've had these before in older vintages, but. Yes, as something to pop right now, I would still decant this if you get a chance. But as something to pop right now with heavier food, this is killer. Or just like older Rioja in general. What else? I don't have all these bottles here, but I'll just name them off. I would get a lighter red as well, and you have a lot of options here. I've talked about my love of Cabernet Franc before, particularly from the Loire Valley. That's an option. You could also do Beaujolais. There's a lot of kind of lightweight, high acid, lower tannins, chillable reds, as the Brooklyn hipsters like to say. But I would go Chile. I think Chile is massively slept on as a producer, but across categories in wine. But specifically, the wine I would get is stuff from Itata. Pedro Parra is doing amazing things in Itata, and you can get his. I always mispronounce this. The Pinco Politano. I think the 2020 is still out right now. You can get that for close to $20, in the low 20s, and it's phenomenal. It's a blend of Cinsault and Pais. Don't worry about what those are, but it is an amazing featherweight wine. Lean and angular, but there's also a smokiness to it and a pepperiness. It's almost like a baby Syrah, but more versatile than Syrahs tend to be. I really, really dig his stuff, and absolutely have it on hand for food, period. All the food. Any food. It'll work, probably. Not eggs. We talked about eggs. So that would be my second red. For white, I went back and forth on this. I really want to get something Italian in here, so we're going to go to Campania. I want you to get a Greco di Tufo. Greco's is an amazing variety for food because they tend to be lower alcohol. They tend to be like 12.5, 13%, maybe 13.5. But the body that they have, they just coat your entire mouth in a way completely out of step with that ABV. They just feel heftier than they are. You'll basically never see oak on them. You'll never see obnoxious but buttery things. They tend to be hefty but fresh. Think Ali. Think heavyweight but behaves like an outboxer. Let's see. I haven't had the current vintage of this, but Vioriano makes a good Greco. I would go out and buy that. I think it's a little bit less than $20. It's good. Another white. I'm going to skip my next white. I'm limited to 5 technically, right? So maybe I'll cheat at the end, but for now, skip it. We're going to go straight into bubbly. And here I'm going to get domestic, because I think domestic bubbly, U.S. bubbly, is actually one of the few underrated categories of American wine. Go buy Roeder Estate. Made in Anderson Valley, way up north in California. Nobody cared about Anderson Valley when Roeder bought all the land up there, and so they managed to keep prices down and quality very, very high for what you're getting. If you have the money, step up to the rosé. The rosé is really pretty awesome, but just the basic Roeder Estate Brut is a fantastic sparkling wine for the price. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Domestic bubbly, you probably didn't have that on your list. And because I want a dessert wine, because it is so hugely underrated as a category. Currently, Binny's has a Clos Perjouet 2015, so it's got a little bit of age on it, for, again, kind of low 20s. This is a Premier Cru Bordeaux. This is technically ranked in the 1855 classification, up there with Latour, Mouton Rothschild, like Aubryon, all those characters. This is their equal, and you can have it for, a 20 and you're some pocket change. These are phenomenal wines. They are food wines. They absolutely go with a whole range of food, and they just kind of they're just kind of undervalued these days because people don't like sugary things. But yeah, go buy this. And if I can cheat, if I may be allowed to cheat, and throw a 6 wine on there. If you got a spare $10, I didn't math this out, I was lazy. Go buy the Curator in South Africa. Curator white wine from Badenhorst, $10. It is in general, like South African whites, cheapies are really, really killer value. They're just wines you can keep in the fridge and pull out anytime you have friends over for anything. Chenin Blanc and Chenin Blanc based blends. This one, the Curator is, I think, mostly Chenin with some Viognier and Chardonnay thrown in there, which is a terrific combination. For $10, you can't go wrong. Just have it around. And yeah, that is my list. So Old Rioja, ideally from 2016, ideally this Cubillo. Pedro Parras, Pencopolitano, 2020 is the current vintage, for your kind of light, chillable red, food-friendly, ripping, high-acid red wine. Greco de Tufo from Campania, Roeder Estate Brut, or domestic bubbly, because again, it's just, they're cheap for what they are. I honestly believe that. And Sauterne, Premier Cru Sauterne. Try one of these things. Clos Perjouet is not the heaviest of the bunch. They lean on the more aromatic floral side, which I dig. And get the Curator. It's great. So that is my list. I'm going to put these here. And I will move False Idol over as well, so I don't kick it over. All right. I am running out of battery life. I may have to go plug this thing in. All right. Oh, yeah, the rancio question. Slamadas asks, could you please explain rancio? I find the term rather confusing, and I've heard somewhat different definitions of it. I've gone back and forth on rancio. I've read the articles. I've read about the 12 stages of rancio or whatever it is. At this point, I'm like convinced 60 to 70% of the rancio talk is just marketing by the cognac and sometimes the Armagnac people. A way to get you to buy older brandy. Oh, you don't smell the rancio? Well, you have to buy the 50-year-old as opposed to the 40-year-old. That was your mistake. However, there is something to it. I need some water. Jeez, my throat is killing me. Coming from Wine World, we talk about tertiary notes. I will call them the terts, lovingly. Primary notes in a wine or a spirit are the things coming from the raw material. So roughly what comes off the still. The flavors that are coming from the stuff that came off the still. The secondary flavor notes are things coming from certain kinds of choices in the production process. Things can get confusing here because oak is the big one. Wood characteristics are the big one, but it also might include things like, maceration, maybe even peat. I'd have to think about that one. But anyway, so we're talking about terts. Tertiary characteristics are the fun ones. They are the weird ones. These are the characteristics that start to pop up as a result of some kind of result of the aging process, which means it's incredibly hard to nail down. Sometimes it can feel like the spirit reasserting itself, but reasserting itself in a weird way that it wasn't before. It can feel like the woody notes kind of transforming into something more complex and earthy sometimes. But in any case, these are the notes that develop during the aging process. I think that's basically what you're dealing with when you talk about rancio. You're talking about the terts. And if it helps you, I would come up with a couple of different categories of rancio. It just means rancid in Spanish, so old. Consider, I just wrote these out, don't take this as gospel, but start with 7 categories of rancio. You might see, I'm going to call it furniture rancio. So think old leather chairs, musty attic, certain kinds of complex nuttiness that aren't just there, coming from the wood itself, but that's all a certain level of rancio. There's a helicopter. Also consider umami rancio, mushrooms. Chocolate comes out sometimes from aging. Soy sauce, umami stuff. MSG, there you go. Also consider sour rancio. Sometimes when you age particularly in Armagnac, you'll see this. You age something for a while, you will start to develop unripe berries or like a stale lemon juice kind of character. That can happen. Earthy rancio. So think like mud, tobacco, forest floor, as we will sometimes politely say in wine. What else? Oh, spicy rancio. Spicy and floral rancio. Those two kind of go together. So think herbs, curry powders, like weird floral things that just kind of come out and don't seem to be like a result of the distillate or the distillate on its own. Did I mention? Musky rancio. I skipped that one. So think like old dog, like wet dog, old butter. Can be a thing. And also, everyone's favorite, fruity rancio. These are the fruit characters that almost seem fake, but they aren't. So, like really, really intense pineapple can be a thing. Lychee fruit, peach sorbet. These things can all come out as a result of aging. So, I don't know. I think rancio, it's a thing to keep an eye on that can go in different sorts of directions. But basically you're talking about tertiary notes. That's the best, and also marketing. That's the best I can do with that. Geez, I'm really running a power. Oh God, this one. Okay, this one came in a DM. And I don't know if you can identify yourself in the comments, but I will not dox you. Okay. Okay. Hey Scott. This is a question for the Q&A, but it's okay if you don't feel comfortable on it. You've said in videos that you think of yourself as a capitalist, guilty, but you're also very critical of the current economic political situation. I guess I don't see how the situation isn't just capitalism run amok. Could you explain your thinking? That's bait. That is bait. I will take the bait a little bit. I'll keep it brief as I can. Or another question, if you want to stay more on topic, what do you think about collectivization / worker ownership in the spirits wine industry? Okay, so... Oh, God. Justifier capitalism. I will not... this is a very long conversation, obviously. I guess the first thing I would say, and I would have to leave it at that, would be... how do I start? I consider myself sympathetic to the concepts laid out by Adam Smith, by David Ricardo, and that tradition, classical economics. Not everyone, but broadly those guys. The thing to recognize is that if those guys were alive right now, they would be considered bright white socialists. they just would be. So yeah, the problem is, the confusion is that there's at least two capitalisms going on. There has been a long project, recycling, a long project, starting from John Bates Clark, going up to, really reaching ahead in the 70s and 80s of essentially, sometimes, very much with good intentions, sometimes, not so much. But, by the time you're up into the 70s and 80s, there's a full-blown subversion of the basic concepts of classical economics going on. And the concepts essentially start to mean the opposite of what they originally meant. And the result of that is, call it neoliberalism, whatever you want. It's not really a liberalism. It isn't even capitalism. It's like it has certain kinds of. It starts with deregulatory gestures, libertarianism, but then you're just on a pipeline leading you to concentration of production, and then to basically full-blown state support for the largest companies in the country and the world. And then finally, I guess, to feudalism of some kind. And I was just thinking about Diageo for another video the other day. But they're a perfect example of this. I mean, it didn't take that long for you to get from, we should let the Guinness guys basically merge and acquire all they want to, hey, let's buy Diageo their own new distillery in the Virgin Islands and throw tons of subsidies at them, and hey, they can keep the profits from all that, which is the thing that we did, and it's not even like that weird a case. Anyways, that is not that ain't capitalism, and it is certainly not the sort of thing the kind of capitalism I support. So I just want to make that distinction, if that's helpful. And I will cut myself off there because I could keep going. In terms of worker ownership co-ops, I'm on board. Absolutely. I mean, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but it's already happening. Like, there's already. I just reviewed this actually surprisingly good rum from the Chicago Cane Cooperative, and they're a worker co-op. But also, less recently, the Party Source in just outside of Cincinnati, one of the coolest liquor stores I've ever been to. Go visit if you're ever passing through the Natty. They're great. That went, fully employee owned. I think about a decade ago. And hey, they've been doing fine. I haven't heard much from the Chicago Cane Cooperative, but they seem to be doing fine. It's something to watch. Please don't die on me, laptop. I'm gonna have to plug this thing in. I mean, in the long term, if we ever get back to caring about productivity and again as a market, like, I do think people will start to figure out the easiest place to make cuts is the C-suite, and I do have some nagging suspicion. So did J.S. Mill, actually. I have some nagging suspicion that businesses that just allow people from the floor into the planning process, or just straight out, worker owned, they may just end up being more market competitive. I mean, again, I am much more on the Smithy side of things. I want there to be a market, but I see no reason why co-ops and other worker employee businesses wouldn't work better in certain kinds of situations. And now the panic light is coming on. I have to pause and go plug this thing in. Sorry. All right. I have power. We have power. We can finish the video. God, we're almost an hour into this. Okay, so that's the defend your capitalism question. All right. Ryan asks. Oh, this is another painful one for me. Do you have any particular strategies with long-term storage of your spirit stash? Any tips to ensure the longevity of open bottles? And there's another question. I guess I'll hold off on that one. Okay, starting with that. I know, not really. I think keeping your bottles in a dark, cooler place, it doesn't have a lot of temperature variation, that's about the best I can do, or the best that I do, because I'm deeply irresponsible with my collection. Watch your shelving. I do put money into my shelving. What else? I mean, there's a longer conversation here. So, you can decant into smaller containers, which is the classic thing. Go get yourself some, 4-ounce containers, maybe 250s. And just when, you start to hit the lower part of the bottle, just decant it in a smaller bottle. Get less oxygen contact. That being said, this is something I've been puzzling about, and I really want to talk to a decent chemist about this, because spirits do seem to change in bottle. They really do. But I don't know what's up with that. They don't oxidize in the same way that wine or sake or something oxidizes. I don't think that that chemically happens. Not in the same way, anyways. But there, you do... So, I don't even know if the same kind of treatments for open wine bottles, like the heavy gases that you would pump in. I don't even know what that works. Not that I would bother with that anyways myself, because life is too short. I don't know if those would work, because I think the problem you're dealing with spirits is just you're dealing with something that has a ton of volatile substances in solution, and it's complicated. Keeping the volume of air smaller seems to help, but it seems to be a different set of problems than you're dealing with than trying to prevent good old-fashioned oxidization. I'm just not sure. So yeah, decant when things get to a certain level. Cool, dark places. Watch your shelving, and beyond that, don't go crazy. Don't be the person wrapping film around the top of your... Don't be that guy. Life is too short. Ryan's second question: when considering a spirit purposes, what factors influence your determination, value, quality, scarcity, overall enjoyment, curiosity, etc.? All of those things, but also particularly these days, does there need to be a review of it? I wasn't buying a lot of scotch for a while, and partly what got me buying more scotch was just noticing how I want to be nice. Just how little of the weird stuff, like the space-side backbenchers I talk about, how little of that was getting attention from the big channels who were supposed to be dealing with this stuff. So, yeah, that's a really, really big factor for me. Aside from all the others you just mentioned, is just does somebody need to be talking about this? Does somebody need to be reviewing it? If that's the case, I'll try to get some. Yeah. Already done with that one. Okay. Oh, Tikaker had a bunch of different questions, which I'm just going to address in a row. You keep up the good work, Scott. Here's a grab of questions. First, you have the knack of being able to pull from a large catalog of flavor notes. Do you have any tips for developing one's nose/palate, together or separately? Yes, steal others' tasting notes. Start with that. Pretend. Fake it. So what you do is you get your bottle that you want to train yourself on. Get yourself a piece of paper or something to write on, and then just pull up all the other reviews you can find. Pull up Surge's stuff, pull up whatever reviews you can find, and just go to the notes and just go through them. Start with one review on the nose. Oh, he gets nuts. And ask yourself, do I get nuts too? What kind of nuts? If you get nuts, write down nuts, and then the particular kind of nut. And if you want to lean in a different direction, the other person, you can do that. But if they say, I get boysenberry, and you don't get boysenberry, you can just skip that one. And you just keep going through the notes like that. But kind of adding your own twist if you feel like it's warranted. Yeah, sure, I get apple, but it's pretty weak. That kind of thing. Or like, it's apple, but it's specifically like Granny Smith, and then go into the next review and do the same thing, and keep on going down. Eventually, you will develop a vocabulary, and pretty soon you can start just putting down a spirit and saying, okay, I'm going to try to name 5 things I am nosing and tasting, and you couldn't do it all yourself because you just had practice pretending that you were writing notes and stealing from other people. But I think that's the way to do it. I've talked more specifically, this was the Bonnerchuck video. I talked more specifically about this in other videos, but that's the basic thing. Steal, pretend and steal until it starts to kick in. Next question. Are there any rules you stick to before doing a tasting? For example, I hear eating eggs beforehand can really impact the palate. I haven't found that with eggs. Salt can sometimes mess you up. Salt and fat, but eggs is not one I look out for. Spicy food, it will crush your palate. Like Szechuan food is a no-no. Ask me how I know. Sweet food is also a palate wrecker. So spicy food, sweet food, sometimes excessively salty or like really mouth-coating food can be an issue. So just give yourself a couple of hours before doing your tasting if you've had any of that stuff. What I like to do in addition to that is, I've talked about this, it's a little bit silly, I have a small glass of like 1 or 2% milk. These days I'm just like taking a skim and putting a little bit of whole milk into it because I drink skim, the family drinks whole. And I will drink that, and then I'll have a big glass of water afterwards, and then it feels like usually my palate is in shape. That's just my own ritual. I feel like everyone else kind of develops their own, but yeah, the main thing is avoid the foods that are going to throw you off, and the big ones for me are particularly spicy and sweet. Let's see. Oh yeah. Next question. Question 3. Not sure how much you can reveal about how you source your sample bottles, but if there's any tips on how to start trading samples, that would be awesome. I will say from personal... There's downsides to recording on the porch. From personal experience, I can report the best way to do this is to start reviewing and posting stuff online. People will hunt you down if you are public about reviewing stuff and discussing stuff. They will, because people out there want to do trades. They want to send you samples of nifty stuff. They want to do splits for a whole variety of reasons. They just want to do it. So it's going to happen if you're out there with a public voice reviewing things, or just like kind of getting active in some kind of community. If you want to get, there's also some retailers, particularly the European ones, that will sell samples. But really, if you want to get people to get you samples, you gotta be out there in a community. You gotta be talking to people. I myself am terrible about... I basically stopped doing trading because I have anxiety issues. Like, for some reason, nothing gets me more anxious. Well, maybe my kids, but almost nothing gets me more anxious than having to, clean out bottles and fill them up and send them to people and not have them to be horribly tainted or break. But anyways, that's a quick question. That's a quick answer to that. Next question. How do you get through / store the volumes of full bottles you've obtained over the years? I don't. Mostly. I've got a back room in there which is full of stuff. I do give things away. I do some cocktailing. I do cook with spirits. That's worth its own video. But a lot it is piling up. Family is getting a little bit concerned, and that is just a problem to deal with. Next question. Are there any plans on doing a live stream of any kind in the future? Not particularly sure what such a live stream would entail, but a shopping bag flight could be a good example. Yeah, this live streaming is something I thought about doing. I haven't set up I'm not good at tech stuff. I've been trying to set up a Discord server for months now, and I suck at this. But yeah, I could set up a live stream. It's just timing of it, because I am not a full-time dad, though, but a very, very close to full-time dad, aside from some side gigs and this. And it's just, given the fluidity of my schedule, it's not something I can do at a fixed weekly time, but I don't know, maybe it's something I could look into doing time to time for fun. People are really interested in that. So yeah, that is the last of to Cocker's questions. Kingsbury asks, this is the closing question, have you thought of making your own spirits at home? It would be great to see what you could make. To which I say, no, I live in a condo building, and that is very, very much against code. Do I have the sort of fantasies sometimes about making my own stuff and running my own little pot still and making, I don't know, palinka from local Illinois fruit? Absolutely. But I feel like that fantasy has to exist as a little bit of a transcendental illusion. Like, it's going to be there, and it's never going to go away, but I don't think I should ever really chase after it. There is, like, I'm in my 40s now, and there's a point at which I have to say, I'm not going to be an astronaut. I'm not going to be an astronaut. I'm probably not going to be a great distiller. But what I would like to be is a good consumer advocate. That's kind of where I feel like my strengths, such as they are, might lie. But hopefully I can help point others, consumers, but also distillers, in a healthy direction. That is the last question. Thank you so much for your support. Thanks for watching, and cheers.